In this video, I'll show you my go-to whiskeys during spring and summer. Now that spring's finally here, I'm leaning more against light and fruity whiskeys, and the first one that comes to my mind, even though it's 50.5% ABV, is the Glenglassaugh Sandon. Imagine that you're sitting outside, breathing the fresh spring air, listening to the birds that are finally back, and you want to drink something with tropical notes. Listen to this. Salted caramel, pineapple, grapefruit, cherries. Can it be more tropical than that? I mean, if you want a light and fruity whiskey, I would go for the Glenglassaugh, but some people may say that 50.5% ABV isn't a light whiskey. Well, for me, it's all about the palate, and this one is light and fruity in my opinion, even though the ABV is a bit higher than a 40%. And if you think about it, if you want a cooler drink during the spring and summer, you can put ice in a whiskey that's 50.5% ABV. You don't want to put ice in a 40% ABV because it's too light. So my next whiskey is also a 50.5 ABV whiskey. It's a bourbon whiskey, it's an American whiskey. It is the Wild Turkey 101. The Wild Turkey 101 is also a fruity whiskey, but it's more like dried fruits. It's a bit darker, so it's not too light. But as I said, this is also a very good whiskey if you want to put some ice in it, because 50.5% ABV is a good proof. It doesn't make the whiskey too light if you put ice in it. And if you want to make an old-fashioned or some cocktail or something with whiskey in it, the Wild Turkey 101 is a very good choice. But in this video, I'll talk about the whiskey you're drinking neat, not the whiskey you're putting in the cocktail. So the next one, I'm going down a bit on the ABV. It's an Irish whiskey. It's the Teeling Small Batch. The Irish whiskies that I've tested so far is lighter whiskies, and the Teeling is no exception. There is spicy notes here, but it's a vanilla-forward whiskey. And when I think of vanilla, I think of desserts, ice creams, so drinking this one in spring is perfect. Think of drinking a whiskey and it reminds you of ice cream. It can't be better. But we gotta go back to the Highlands. We're going back to the light and fruity whiskeys from Scotland. It's a 43% ABV whiskey. It's the Dalwhinnie 15. The Dalwhinnie 15 is a gentle, light and fruity whiskey. White fruits, honey, toffee and citrus. When you drink it, the viscosity is like water. It's very wet in a way, if you know what I mean. It's so delightful and it's dangerously good. You can drink way too much of this, so be careful. But sitting with this one outside during spring, it's very good. And it's only 43% ABV, so it's even lighter than the rest of them. But let's crank up the ABV a tiny bit again. We're going to 50% ABV. It's the Ardnamurchan 10 years. If you want a whiskey with a little bit more body than the rest of them, you should go for the Ardnamurchan 10. It's a bit heavier body, but it's still fruity, got honey and citrus, and there are some spices there. It's a very good whiskey in my opinion. I like it very much, and I'm sure I will drink and probably empty the bottle during the spring and summer, because it's a bit heavier, it's higher proof, but it's still sweet and fruity and perfect to drink during the spring and summer in my opinion. And with this one as well, with 50% ABV, you could put some ice in it and not destroy everything. Just don't let the ice melt too much so it gets diluted into water with whiskey flavor. And now we're going back to America again. There's a whiskey there that I drank almost a bottle of last summer. I really like this kind of whiskey. I never talked about this kind of whiskey actually on my channel, but it's the Woodford Reserve Rye Whiskey. This is a very good spring and summer whiskey in my opinion. And I think that's because of the spearminty flavors that you're getting in rye whiskey. Spearmint, apples and honey. Think of that combination into a whiskey. It's very, very good. And I tend to like the whiskeys around 46% ABV, and this one at 45.2%, it's pretty close to the sweet spot. I really hope you liked the video so far. If you do, please hit the thumbs up. It really helps. Alright, the next whiskey is a 46% ABV whiskey. It's the Arran 10. The Arran 10 isn't a light whiskey either, but it's lighter than the American 10. And it's fruity, it got some hazelnut, there's coconut, and there's citrus, and it's very fresh. It's a very summer-forward whiskey in my opinion. It's a very delightful whiskey that's 46% ABV, so for some people it's maybe a bit strong. For me, it's the perfect amount of alcohol, and if you're sitting outside and just feeling the spring breeze and drinking the Arran 10, life is just beautiful. And now I'm moving over to the Speyside region. I need a sherry bomb during the spring. This is the Tamdhu 12. If you are leaning against the sherry cask finished whiskies, this is a whiskey that you just gotta try during the spring and summer. Bring it outside, pour it in the Glencairn, and just enjoy. You get biscuits, there's some dried yellow fruits, there's honey, and this is a sherry bomb. It's very, very good, and I'm sure that I will drink a lot of this during the summer. It sounds like I will be drunk all the summer. I don't drink very much whiskey during the summer, but when I do, I like to drink these kinds of whiskeys. So let's move over to the next one. This is also a Speyside whiskey. It's also a sherry cask finished whiskey. It's the Abelauer 12 year. This was the first non-peated whiskey that I ever liked. Citrus, toffeed apple, there is some sweet malt. It's a very, very good whiskey, and it's only 40% ABV, so it's very easy to drink if you are sensitive to the alcohol burn. This is the whiskey that I bring outside if I have guests that don't like whiskey as much, because everybody thinks this is an okay whiskey, and very many people have said, maybe whiskey is something for me after all. So this whiskey, for me, it's a no-brainer. If I want to have a whiskey with a bit higher ABV, I would probably go for the Abelauer Abunad. But for the summers, I will drink the Abelauer 12 years. But this summer, I may not bring this one out if there's any guests that don't like whiskey. Because there's another whiskey that I've tried recently that's a very spring and summer forward whiskey. Even though that's a 46% ABV whiskey, I think many guests will like this one during the summer. Because it's a very, very good and easy to drink whiskey. It's a Glenmorangie, A Tale of Ice Cream. I tried this whiskey for the first time just a couple of days ago, and just by looking at the bottle gives me the summer vibes. I know you shouldn't be looking at the bottle and think of what the whiskey would taste like, because the whiskey tastes what the whiskey tastes, but come on, you gotta admit it looks like a summer bottle. And the flavors, brioche, like hamburger bun, there is caramel, there's apple, and there is some almonds. There is very, very delightful flavors, and combined all the flavors, it's a very, very good spring and summer whiskey. I don't know if all my guests would like this one, but I think many of them would, and if they don't, they can always come and see in the shelf for themselves and pick what they would like to drink. What would you drink during the spring and the summer? Do you drink the same whiskey as you drink during the winter time? Or do you have different kinds of whiskey for different times of the year? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching the video. Remember to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And until next time, cheers.